Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by co-host Matt Carter. We're going to break down NC State's first road win of the 2020-2021 season. NC State coming out on top of Boston College 81-65 in Chestnut Hill on Saturday, February 6th. But before we get too far into this episode, this podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there has never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 5-star reviews. Give Hunter Clausen a call today at 480-513-3992 or email Hunter directly at hclausen@jfqlending.com. That's HCLAUSSEN@jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending, Inc., Equal Access Lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. And while you're at it, head over to thewolfpacker.com and use promo code PACK60. That's promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial on all of our premium content, news, and analysis over at thewolfpacker.com. Obviously in the thick of ACC play in both men's and women's basketball. Shout out to the women's basketball team who's heading to Chapel Hill today to take on the Tar Heels in the first meeting of their regular season. But of course, football recruiting, all that good stuff. Use that promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial on thewolfpacker.com. And before we get into the weeds of NC State's 16-point victory in Chestnut Hill on Saturday, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcast apps, Spotify, Google Play, and of course, you can always watch us on YouTube as well. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Wolfpacker YouTube channel, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Okay, Matt, let's talk about NC State's much-needed win yesterday. First road win of the season. It seems odd that the first road win of the season comes in February, but nonetheless, NC State has had its struggles on the road this season, as pretty much every team in the ACC has, despite the fact that there hasn't been any fans. I mean, going into this year, we kind of thought, there's no real home court advantage, and early on, the coaches seemed to agree with that, but, there definitely still has been a correlation of the home team typically wins these games, so something about the comfort of sleeping in your own bed. I mean, it's just a difference in the routine. I think there's also some benefit of shooting in your home gym. Nonetheless, NC State was able to come out victorious on the road. They get their ice cream for the first time since February 11th, 2020, when NC State went up to the Carrier Dome and beat Syracuse by 5 points. But we were talking before this podcast. I know, typically a win like this, a game that NC State led by as much as 30 points in the second half until Boston College made a late run back against NC State's freshmen and clearly their second and third line, particularly in the front court. NC State dominated this game, but we have to mention, Boston College was not at full strength. They were without about half of their rotation. They still had some of their top scorers like Jay Heath. I mean, he was phenomenal yesterday. He was probably the only Boston College player that can say that they had a good game. But nonetheless, Boston College was just undermanned. They looked like a team that had just come off a 3-week break, and it was all NC State after Boston College scored the first 5 points. I think what, Matt, is a 37-3 run by the Wolfpack in the first half. So from that point on, I mean, different situation, but it kind of reminded you of the NC State Florida State game back in mid-January where, it was competitive back and forth for the first 3 or 4 minutes, and then NC State in January, it was Florida State, just made a huge run and then completely kind of put the game away early on in the first half. So, Matt, just your thoughts on that first half run and, how much do you make of Boston College not being at full strength? Do you still gain some confidence in this win if you're NC State?
Well, certainly if you're NC State, you feel good about any win. From a strictly analytical point of view, no, I take nothing out of it. I mean, it was just, that's not an ACC team that they played. That was the equivalent of playing UMass Lowell or whatever it was, or Campbell or something to that effect. I mean, it was just I did a breakdown in the quick hits column. That was half of BC points from the game in which NC State beat Boston College by 3 in Raleigh. Half of the points in that game were gone. Most of the assists in that game were gone. Most of the steals in that game were gone. Most of the only block shot BC had in that game was gone. The tallest player was gone. Leading scorer was second leading scorer was gone. But the only thing that maybe would not have affected with the rebounding, they still had some of the best rebounders. But I mean, they were so short that we'll talk about this a little bit. I'm sure the NC State obviously went with the strategy of just getting the ball inside. And, this was not an ACC versus, it was technically an ACC versus ACC team. This was really an ACC versus, Northeast Conference team out there. And that's not a knock on BC. I mean, that's just nobody in the ACC, if you're playing an 8-man rotation and you're losing 4 of the 8 guys in that rotation, including a couple of starters, and another one's your tallest player, that's.
I don't know. I still think Florida State could win a few games, but
they might be unaccepted. Yeah, I mean, that would have been like NC State losing, let's say full strength NC State, right? Let's say with Devin Daniels was still on the court, but let's say that would have been like losing Jericho Helms and Braxton Beverly and Shaquille Moore and DJ Vanderbook. State would have been screwed at that standpoint. And and BC has less talent than NC State. So I don't take a whole lot out of it. The only thing I took was NC State did what a good team is supposed to do. You have an inferior opponent that is wounded. Quickly take care of business. 37-3 run is a phenomenal run, no matter who you're playing. Boston College was missing some shots, so they helped out a little bit on that. But anytime you're on a 37-3 run, that's phenomenal. So clearly, NC State played pretty good. I would say that's the 3rd straight game they played pretty good.
Bah humbug, Matt. I mean, enjoy a road win. It's the first time we've gotten to write about a road win this season, a well-deserved win for the Pack.
Well, you might allow with a neutral court.
Okay, in that certain circumstance, I would disagree with the post-game ice cream there. You got to win a true road game. I mean, maybe Keats was just trying to get his freshmen. It's been a tough season. These guys haven't been able to do half the things that they'd normally get to do, part of their college experience because of the pandemic, because of COVID, and because they're athletes that are trying to play out their season, try to stay away from the virus. So, maybe he was just trying to have a little bit of fun there in Bubbleville and give them some ice cream. But nonetheless, we'll be interested to hear how exactly that worked in a pandemic. But back to the game per se, I guess what stuck out to me specifically about NC State, with the exception of late in the first half when Boston College made that mini run to pull it back to about a 20-point game at halftime, which still clearly NC State had a phenomenal first half. But I thought in the last 4 minutes of that first half, NC State fell in love with the jump shots a little bit. They were settling a little bit. They kind of went away from the equation that was working so well. But what I was encouraged to see is how they quickly got back to that in the second half and really just put the game away by feeding the post. That was the game plan going into the game. That's where NC State had a clear advantage. They have a size advantage over Boston College, even if the Eagles were at full strength. But when they're without several of their rotation, then you really want to take advantage of the lack of personnel, pound the paint, maybe get them in foul trouble. They didn't get them too much in foul trouble, but I like the game plan, and it worked out well. Points in the paint, NC State wins 42-22, out-rebounded the Eagles, 40-27. Offensive rebounds 10-6, and they outscored the Eagles 19-4 in second chance points. So, really impressive performance from the NC State front court. Granted, it's not, the same as doing that against Carolina's front court or Florida State's front court, but still that showed that they were able to get it done. They executed the game plan. The guards, while they're not going to, with the exception of Shaquille Moore, he had an outstanding game. But other than that, they're not going to wow you with their point totals. They didn't have phenomenal stats. but they executed the game plan. They took care of the basketball for the most part. It got a little sloppy with turnovers at the end, but that was the second and third string. They fed the post, got assists, did their job. So I'm going to credit NC State for sticking to that game plan. But I thought the one interesting takeaway that we can talk about here, Matt, is it seems that this is the third straight game where NC State's kind of formed this new identity per se. I talked to you a little bit about this after the game, and you said you can't form a new identity based on this game. But if you look back at the Syracuse losses, or the Syracuse loss and the Virginia loss, NC State still wins the points in the paint battle in those games. They still out-rebound both of those teams. They still grab more offensive rebounds than those teams. That was one thing that really hurt them in the Virginia game, is that they were dominant on the offensive glass, but they weren't able to execute second-chance points. They only scored 2 second-chance points. But you're seeing that they're relying on their veteran talent, that what's remaining now that Devin Daniels is gone, your primary ball handler, saying let's not go with the same equation that we were working with lesser personnel. I mean, we've already thrown these freshman guards into the fire of ACC play this season without an off season, without many non-conference games to get comfortable with the college speed of the game. Let's rely on the guys that have been here, and that just so happens to be the front court with junior Jericho Helms, fifth-year senior DJ Funderburk, and redshirt sophomore center Manny Bates. So, Matt, do you think, I mean, they kind of talked about this after the game, like this is what we're pretty much going to do the rest of the way, but A, do you think that is actually going to happen? And B, do you think that is a winning formula for this team moving forward with several winnable games left on this schedule?
Yeah, a lot of winnable games left on the schedule. I think they have 8 technically scheduled games left on the schedule, and I would say 7 of them are definitely, the exception being at Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are going to be some challenging games. At Pitt won't be easy. Pitt at home won't be easy. Duke at home. I mean, really, truthfully,
none of them are going to be easy.
Yeah, I would say the game at Wake Forest might be the one game, but I would say you shouldn't lose that game.
It's like even they play tough, though.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, they kind of hit a little tougher stretch lately. But to your point, it's like, I mean, that's the best identity right now for NC State. I still think they can be a good shooting basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
They just hadn't, for whatever reason, these guys are just in a prolonged, not shooting well. But Thomas Allen and Braxton Beverly and Cam Hayes can make threes. We know Shaquille Moore is going to be streaky. But I think the other 3 guys on a night in, night out basis had the potential to be good shooters. It's just not connecting right now. They were 6 of 18 against BC. I still think this can be, that's 33%. I still think this can be a team that makes 38, 39% of their threes. And so to me, that would be the next step for them. Because eventually they're going to have to make jump shots. Because Manny Bates is not a true post scorer yet. He finishes around the back, and he got some nice. He can occasionally give you a nice hook shot or a turnaround shot. But
how about that reverse layup in the Virginia? That was
nice.
Didn't expect that.
But I wouldn't count on that to be my primary production. I still think you need the guards to score some for you when you get into the tougher competition. We know Virginia's defense is Virginia's defense, but it was still 57 points against Virginia's defense. And, Syracuse is going to be very hard to score the ball in the paint because of the zone defense. That's, Manny Bates had 17 points, but if we're honest about it, a lot of those were wide open dunks created by Helms at the free throw line, or one time he leaked out and got a fast break dunk. So I think that the smartest thing to do is kind of work inside out, is what I guess I'm saying. Is I think I agree with you. It needs to be inside out, but the out has to still be there.
Right.
Particularly as you're going to get further along, and where I kind of, when I was saying I don't know if that's the identity yet, I still don't know if I think not Wednesday against Syracuse. I think Duke will be the start of really seeing what be the right way because Boston College ran a zone. It wasn't a good zone, but they ran a zone defense. Virginia runs the pack line. This is the second time in 4 games you're seeing the patent 2-3 zone from Syracuse. So you hadn't had a chance to really play a traditional, straight-up man-to-man defense that you're going to face 80+% of the time. So I'm curious. That's kind of the game I have circled. I think they can win, by the way, Tuesday night against Syracuse. And if you're still holding on to hope of March Madness, that's a must-win, obviously.
Pretty much all of them the rest of the way you can count as must-wins.
Yeah, you could probably afford to lose at Virginia and not be punished for it. But,
Although that's your best quality opportunity left.
It's the best quality opportunity left. It's interesting because they have a couple of teams, Pittsburgh and Notre Dame, that are teetering on that quad 1 status. And Virginia Tech, which is the home game later, that are just kind of teetering on that quad 1 status. And so right now they technically have 3 quad 1 games left.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them is not scheduled. It's still on their postponed, which is at Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
But they still have at Virginia and at Notre Dame. But both Pittsburgh on the road and Virginia Tech at home are not far away from being a quad 1. And Notre Dame's not far away from dropping to a quad 2. So it's an interesting schedule. But there are also really no more bad games, kind of trip-up opportunities left for NC State. But get back on topic. I agree. Inside out is the way you got to work. And I will kind of have Helen be the point man on that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, at some point, you're going to need the guards to score. It's a guard-oriented game. And we saw last year with North Carolina, they had all that front court talent. And they had a miserable season because their guards, other than Cole Anthony, couldn't score. This year, they look better over in Chapel Hill because Caleb Love and those guys are scoring a little bit more. I think the guys have to score.
You're looking at the first 3 games in Kevin Keats' time at NC State where he has not had a guard. Throw out the games where Markel Johnson was hurt in various stretches in his first 3 seasons, but this is the first time really that Kevin Keats has not had a guard that can create on his own. He had that with C.J. Bryce. He had that with Al Freeman as well. Sometimes he had more than just one guy. But
he mentioned that with Shaquille Moore, and I think that was a good point Keith made. Shaquille Moore is the guy that can get to the bucket. He's their best paint point, whatever he called it. Paint touch guard that they have. And I think that was one positive development. Shaquille Moore taking the ball to the basket. It's a positive. Cam Hayes can do it too, but that was the book on him in high school. He was not a great finisher at the rim. He was more of a jump shooter, mid-range jump shot guy. So that'll be interesting to see. We know Braxton Beverly, that's not his game. It doesn't appear to be Thomas Allen's game. Could Shaquille Moore start to have something going to the basket?
And you got to give Kevin Keats credit because it sounds like the conversation that he had with Shaquille Moore before that game was not just, I need you to be more of a creator. It was also, I need you to stop taking as many threes as you're taking because, he admitted after the game that, Shaquille Moore, he's not a guy that came into the program as a guy that's going to knock down 40% of his three-point shots. And early on, he had that hot streak back in December, starting with that Carolina game, made some big shots against Boston College, and he was very effective from the perimeter. But then you look at his stat lines over the month of January, and then he's taken like 6-7 shots from 3 a game. I don't think that was his total average, but I'm saying on any given night he could be taking that many threes, and he's potentially making just 1 or 2 of them at a normal rate. That's not really his game. Not yet, at least. He's still got to develop that jump shot a little bit more, but he is a great he can drive to the bucket. He's tough. He's fearless. He can get to the foul line. He's a great finisher, as we've seen multiple times this season. So when he's at his best, it's an inside-out type of game. Kind of similar to Devin Daniels, where it's like Daniels is a guy that is capable of making the three-point shots, but when he's forcing them up, that's when things can get a little bit hairy. So, that's the one thing other than, leaning on your front court that I'm interested to see in these next few games. Can Shaquille Moore build off of this game? Can he gain? We know the defensive skill set's there, and we know the offensive capability is there. But what about the offensive consistency? This is just his third time this season where he scored in double figures. The first 2 times being in the month of December, the first game against Carolina with his previous career high of 17 points. And then he scored 11 against Boston College. Hadn't done it again until yesterday when he scored a season or career high, 19 points, I think. But impressive performance from him. He's very efficient from the field. And Keats mentioned this. I mean, he just needs one of his guards to have a game like that a game. And he can't expect multiple any given game. You hope that either Braxton Beverly or Thomas Allen's going to be knocking down threes. I don't know what's been going on with Thomas Allen recently, during this 4-game stretch, really since they've gotten back from that 10-day break in January. He's just he must be in his head or something. He can't buy a bucket from the perimeter. I think he's made just 2 threes in the last 4 or 5 games. So something's got to give there. Braxton's been fairly consistent, but hasn't been knocking them down the way State fans know he's capable of. Look back at his freshman season when he's knocking down 40% of his threes. I don't think he's ever going to get back to that type of point, but you need one of those guys to be knocking down threes. And, of course, Cam Hayes is capable of, a pull-up game from the mid-range, but he's got to be more of a facilitator. He's not consistent enough finishing at the rim or from the perimeter to, rely on him to take more than 5 jumpers a game. But, yeah, I mean, to me, that's the winning equation. You lose your primary ball handler, you got to go inside out. So we'll see. In NC State, you look back at even the previous 3 seasons under Coach Keats, NC State's had a lot of success against zone defenses. So I think I'm with you. I think Tuesday's a winnable game for the Wolfpack against Syracuse, a team that's struggling coming off of that loss or that win in the Carrier Dome to NC State, rather. NC State really should have won that game. They led for majority of the game, led at halftime, had opportunities to kind of make it a bigger lead than that wouldn't have been comeback opportunities for Syracuse, but Syracuse finds a way to get it done. I think NC State can tie the series meetings of this season Tuesday, but we'll see. It's another hard-fought game ahead. Let's see. What else? We can give out game balls. I mean, other than that, we can talk about the ice cream.
Okay.
I thought it was a funny story that Keats shared after the game about the Clemson game where his one of his directors of operations on the team, Chris Zepko, talked to him before the game of the Clemson game and talked about how he was going to go during the game, look for places to get ice cream after the game. And Coach Keats thought that jinxed his team. Thought that was funny. He was clearly in a good mood after a good road win for NC State, but I'm with you. You can't take a whole lot out of this game. It was a necessary win. NC State did what they had to do. We'll see what they can do. And a big, I think, 4-game stretch coming up. You got to win at least 3 of them to, keep that spirit alive, try to stay in the conversation, a realm of possibility to sneak into March. And, of course, if they can win multiple of these games, they can finish the season strong. You get to the ACC tournament, there will be quad 1 opportunities if you can keep surviving and advancing. So we will see. But let's go ahead and give out our game balls because we don't have to overanalyze what happened on Saturday. I'll let you start. There's a clear winner, but I think there's also several good options for the second game ball. So you want to take Shaquille Moore?
Yes, sir. He had 19 points, made 8 of 12 shots, 3 or 4 threes, 6 defensive rebounds, which is something that can be important against going forward. Couple of assists. Did have the 3 turnovers, but look, I'd forgive a Shaquille Moore on that. I mean, he's a freshman. Him and Hayes, I'm expecting them to turn the ball over. But he also had 2 steals and 1 heck of a block shot. So I thought he played well all around. He got 23 minutes of playing time. If that Shaquille Moore shows up half the games the rest of the way, NC State will be in a good position. Granted, he wasn't, he should have been doing that out there, but if they can get that Shaquille Moore, out of the next 8 games 3 or 4 times, they'll be in great shape. And then if some other guard can step up the other 3 or 4 or 5 games, that would help out really well too. So it's what you mentioned. They just need one guard to do that kind of stuff. One of the 4 going forward. So.
Well, answer this. Do you think it's time to consider maybe putting more in that starting lineup and getting Allen off the bench? Because for whatever reason, and look, I'm not saying take away minutes from Allen. I think
No, I mean, that's fair to say. He shot better when he came off the bench. So, I'll say this for Thomas Allen. He's still playing great defense out there. We all talk about Shaquille Moore's defense. I actually think Thomas Allen a very good defensive player. He had 3 steals and 2 block shots. And he led the team with 4 assists along with Cam Hayes. So he's doing a lot of stuff. He's just not making his shots. Do you flip him? I would maybe consider flipping him only strictly for the point that I'm superstitious like a lot of sports fans, and maybe there's something to it, and switch it up, because I know just as easily the number could be reversed. It could be Allen that goes 3 for 4 from 3 and Moore goes 0 for 5. So, but obviously the 2 games he came off the bench, he went 4 for 5 from 3s in both games or something to that effect. So.
Well, I think that was the 2-game stretch where NC State lost to Miami and then Florida State on the road. Thomas Allen in those 2 games went 8 of 10 from the perimeter. So,
yeah.
I mean, look, not a sustainable rate, but if he's knocking them down like that off the bench, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a mentality. I don't know if it's a rhythm thing, but look, you got to go with what works. So something to monitor there. And one last point before I give my game ball out. NC State made their free throws yesterday. Went 11 to 13 from the strike, 84.6% for the game. I don't have the full season stats of free throw percentage in front of me, but just right off the page, to me it seems like that's probably their best game this season from the free throw line, because NC State has shot roughly around 65 to 70% from the free throw line this year, and it's cost them some games. I mean, in that Virginia game, they left some points on the board on the free throw line. I think they shot just 56%. So nice to see NC State bounce back and make the free throws, because that's important. And 8 of 8 from your 2 big guys, Manny Bates and DJ Funderburg. So promising to see there. Speaking of which, I'm going to give my game ball to DJ Funderburg. 14 points, 7 rebounds, had 1 steal as well. He did that in 21 minutes. Very efficient, and I thought it was encouraging to see him with that type of enthusiasm and energy, considering what had happened in the Virginia game. Clearly there was the conversation of him not playing in that final 6 minutes, 30 seconds. Apparently he looked frustrated on the bench while that was happening. I'm sure he wants to be out there trying to help his team win a ball game, but good to see him come back with that type of performance after a game where there was some questions of, why isn't DJ Funderburk in the game at this time? It was an opportunity for him to maybe hang his head a little bit and, say, maybe I'm not going to go all out. Seems like it was a positive response instead. Was very efficient. He went 5 of 8 from the field. Didn't take a 3. I think that's probably a good thing for him moving forward. I mean, look, if he's got an open one and it's the right opportunity, take it. But they just haven't been going in from him from the perimeter. So good to see him getting some work done on the inside. Another presence on the offensive glass. He's a great putback guy. So DJ Funderburk is the second game ball. And that will do it for this Postgame Reflections podcast. NC State will tip off against Syracuse in PNC Arena on Tuesday at 6:30, another game on ACC Network. Of course, if you're watching this on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, you got the Chiefs and the Buccaneers later. But before that, you've got NC State and UNC in women's basketball. NC State women's basketball off to, great season so far. If they win this game, they'll probably be ranked number 1 in the country after beating number 1 Louisville earlier last week on Monday in the KFC Yum Center. So Wolfpack fans, if you don't typically watch women's basketball, I think now is the time to tune in, because the Lady Wolfpack are crushing it on the court, and they're not just a legitimate ACC tournament championship contender. They are a legitimate national title contender this season. So tune into the Lady Pack. Keep watching your men. they're back in action on Tuesday. So we'll see if NC State can build off this momentum and get a few more wins in the win column, get back to 500 in ACC play. They'll have an opportunity to do so this upcoming week. So remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. Follow us on social media. You can follow our main account at the Wolfpacker on Twitter. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will. Give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on thewolfpacker.com. And, of course, while you're on thewolfpacker.com, use that promo code PACK60. That's promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial on all of our premium content, news, and analysis. So for Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams on Super Bowl Sunday, and this has been the Wolfpacker
Go
Podcast.
Chiefs.
Yeah, I got my Chiefs shirt on.